Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Math Made Easy with Terry in 10 minutes. So we're going to talk about the powers of J, and in this video I'm going to focus on the positive integer powers only. The next video I'm going to talk about the negative integers powers, but for this I'm going to talk about only the positive integer powers. Before I proceed, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you've not clicked the notification bell, I don't know what you're waiting for. Please click on it so that when I post the next video, you'll be the first person to know. All right, so let's go. So the powers of J. So like I said, the powers of J, we have two types. Okay, we have the positive integer powers. And we have the negative what? Integers powers. Okay, so the positive integers power, and we have the negative integers powers. So, but in this video, I'm just going to focus on the positive integers powers. Then in the next video, I'm going to talk about the negative integers powers. So let's get straight to it. So how do we do that? So we're going to have the positive. We're going to talk about the positive integer powers. Okay, talk about the positive integer powers. All right. So now, just a quick reminder before I proceed. I've said this severally. I've said this a lot of times, okay? So what I've said is that when you have J is equal to the square root of -1, okay? And minus J is the same thing as minus square root of what? -1. So I've talked about this earlier. So now this is what the powers is about, okay? So what we are now saying is that now if we have J squared, okay? So what would this be? So J squared is gonna be square root of -1 all squared. Are you seeing it? And that is gonna give us -1. Are you seeing it? So therefore, we can now say J squared is equal to what? -1. Now, it's very important that you go back and watch my video on the loss of indices, because one of the things we're going to be playing around a lot in this section, we're going to be talking about the loss of indices, all right? So for instance, if you have j raised to the power 3, now it's still the same thing as saying j raised to the power what? 2 multiplied by j. Is exactly the same thing, because remember in the loss of indices, we said a raised to the power m times a raised to the power n is equal to a raised to the power m plus n. So that means if we say j raised to the power 2 multiplied by j raised to the power 1, because this is going to be 1 here, there's an invisible 1 there, okay? It's going to be equal to j raised to the power 2 plus 1, and that will give us what? J raised to the power what? 3. So that means we can now write this way. So, but we already know from the beginning that j squared is equal to -1. So it's going to be -1 times j, and therefore it's going to be what? Minus j. So therefore, we can now say j cubed is equal to what? Minus j. Now, the rest of it is just more indices you're going to be playing around. So if, for instance, you have j raised to the power 4, okay, it's going to be the same thing as j raised to the power 2 times j raised to the power what? 2. Is this making sense? Or you can put it in another different way. You can say it's the same thing as saying j raised to the power 2 all raised to the power what? 2. So remember in the loss of indices, I told you that a raised to the power m all raised to the power n is the same thing as saying a raised to the power what? mn. Okay? So that means j raised to the power 2 2 is going to be j raised to the power 2 times 2, which is anything as j raised to the power what? 4. So that means we can now say, we know j squared is 1, right? So 1 times 1, and that will give you 1. So therefore, we can say j raised to the power 4 is equal to 1. Or you can put it in this way, which is going to be j squared is 1, all squared, and the answer is going to be 1, which is exactly the same thing we have there. All right? So what you need to know is that, very important from this is that you need to note that j squared is equal to -1, while j4 is going to be equal to 1. It is very important that you keep this in your notebook or in your bag, because you're going to use this to solve several questions about this. All right? Now, I'm going to write down 4 rules that usually help me to answer this kind of questions. So I'm going to write it down so that, I don't know, it might help one or more of the viewers. So let me write this down here. Okay, so usually there are 4 rules or 4 steps I usually keep in mind when I'm doing this. Number 1 is that j raised to the power of 2 So when j is raised to the power of 2, this is equal to -1. Okay? So when you have j is raised to the power of 2, you can solve it, but you don't need to solve it. You just know it's equal to -1 like I've shown you. The next one is, like we said, when j is raised to the power of 4, the answer is what? The answer is 1. So j raised to the power of 2 is -1, while j raised to the power of 4 is 1. Number 3, the next one is that j raised to a positive power is reduced to one of the following results. So that means when you have j raised to any positive power, maybe 20, 23, there are only 4 possible results you can have. You can either have positive j, negative j, positive 1, or negative 1. No matter what you're solving, this is the 4 possible answers you will get. So what you need to know is that j raised to any positive power is reduced to one of the following results. So you either have a plus or minus j, that positive j or negative j, or you have positive 1 and negative 1. So this is the 4 possible answers you can get for this. So these are the 4 possible answers you can get. So what I'm saying is that when you're solving this, any question you have on this, you can either get positive j, you can either get negative j, you can either get positive 1, or you get negative 1. So these are the 4 answers you can get when solving, all right? Then number 4, which is the last rule to note. When you're doing this, all power should be expressed in terms of j4 or j raised to the power 2. So basically, what I used to do in order to make it easier, so if, for instance, I was giving j raised to the power 20, all right? I always try to break it in the factors of j4 and j2. So I can either say this is the same thing as j4 all raised to the power of 5. Are you seeing it? Or I can say this is the same thing as j2 all raised to the power of 10. Do you understand? Because j4 and j2, because I know j4, When it's raised to the power of 4 is 1. When it's raised to the power of 2 is -1. So that's making sense. So it helps me for me to know what to do. So for instance, this is going to be 1 raised to the power of 5, and this is equal to 1. This is going to be -1 raised to the power of 10, and that is going to give me also 1. So it's better to break it, no matter how big the number you have, try to break it into smaller terms of j raised to the power 4 or j raised to the power 2, and that will help you to solve it more easily. All right, so I'm going to write it down. So we have all powers should be expressed in terms of J4 and J2, okay? So make sure when you're solving, express all of this in terms of J4 and J2. So it will just make it so easier for you, all right? So just making it easier. So it's easier this way, all right? Now, you don't really have to, but in my own experience, when solving questions, I find it very, very, very easy because I already know that J4 is 1. I know that J2 is -1. So with that, now I can play around with the loss of indices here so I can solve it. All right. Okay, so let's pick some examples. All right, let's pick some examples here. So let's assume we have this. Now we have J, sorry, get this out. So number 1, we have J raised to the power 9, okay? So J raised to the power 9, so remember you have to express this in the factor of J4, J2, all right? So we know that this is the same thing as saying J raised to the power what? 4 multiplied by 2 is going to give us 8, and we're just left with 1. Are you seeing it? So we know that J raised to the power 4 is 1 square times J. So that means the final answer for this is going to be what? J. Are you seeing it? So when you break it down into factors of 4s or 2s, it's very easy for you to solve. Now, the second one, the one I just talked about, I said J raised to the power 20. So what I can say is that it's going to be J raised to the power 4 all multiplied by 5. So it's very important that before you come to this section that you are very, very conversant and comfortable with using the laws of indices. So just go back to my the playlist or in the series, you will see one of just search the laws of indices. I discuss all these laws there. So that this is going to be equal to J raised to the power 4 is 1 raised to the power 5, and therefore the answer is going to be what? 1. So remember I told you all the possible answers you can get, there are only 4 possible answers. You can get 1, -1, positive J, and negative J. So that's the only 4 possible answers you can get with the powers of J, all right? With the positive powers of J. Number 3, we have J raised to the power 30 here. So J raised to the power 30. So I can break this as J raised to the power 4 and 7. This is 28. And then I'm left with 2. So J raised to the power 2. So J raised to the power 4 will be 1 raised to the power 7 times -1. And then the answer you're going to get is also what? -1. Okay. Number 4. Let's pick maybe one more. Let's say we have J raised to the power what? 15. So I can break this down as well to be J4. So what will be the closest one? 3, because if I do 4 is 16, so I can do 3 is 12. Okay, so 12, then I'm going to be left with J raised to the power what? 2, that is 15. Sorry, 14, and J raised and 1 J. So you can see now then I've had the 15. So 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 2 is 14. 14 plus 1 is 15, all right? And then it's going to be j raised to the power 4 is going to give me 1 raised to the power what? That will give me 1 there. It's going to be 1 raised to the power 3 multiply j raised to the power 2 is minus 1. Then we have j. So that means it's going to be 1 times minus 1 is going to be minus 1. Minus 1 times j is going to give you what? J. Okay? All right, so that is that for that. Okay, you can see regardless of how you have it, you can break it down in terms of 4s and 2s, and you can see that you can solve the question. You can either get positive 1, negative 1, positive j, or negative j. All right, so what I want you to do, I want you to try these questions, and I want you to discuss this with your friend, okay? Or you can put it in the comment section. So what will be the answer for this? So if, for instance, you have j raised to the power 42, what would the answer be? If you have j raised to the power 12, what would the answer be? And if you have j raised to the power, let's say maybe 11, what would the answer be for that? And the last one, if you have j raised to the power 100, what would that be? Okay, so that is how solve it, discuss with a friend. And if you're struggling, please send me an email and I'll get back to you with the answers. Or if you've solved it, you can put it in the comment section and then I'll have a look at it and I get back to you as soon as I can. All right, so we're done. We're done with the positive powers of j. The next video we're going to talk about is the negative powers of j. So what happens when, for instance, you have j raised to the power minus 2 or j raised to the power minus 3? How do you go about it? So it's important that you now subscribe. You click the notification bell so that when I post the next video on the negative powers of j, you'll be the first person to know. All right? So I'll see you soon in the next video where we talk about the negative powers, negative integer powers, okay? So see you soon.